Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging deep, and I mean literally digging deep, into one of the wildest and most enduring conspiracy theories out there. The idea that our planet isn't solid at all, that it's hollow.
So, when you think of UFOs, where do they come from? Outer space, right? Well, for some folks, the answer is a whole lot closer to home. They believe these strange craft aren't coming from the stars, but from a secret world right under our feet. And believe me, the story of how this idea got started is stranger than anything you could imagine.
So let's get into it. To really wrap our heads around how we got from a hollow planet to, UFOs, we need to go way back. Back to a time when the hollow Earth theory wasn't some wild conspiracy. Nope, it was actually a serious scientific question.
For centuries, pretty much forever, the world down there was a place for myths and legends, You had Hades, hell, a place for spirits and gods. But then, in the 17th century, a really famous astronomer came along and totally flipped that idea on its head. And we're talking about Edmund Halley. Yep, that Halley, the Halley's Comet guy. He was the one who first proposed a scientific model for a hollow planet. Now, he wasn't thinking about aliens or anything like that. He was just trying to solve a real scientific puzzle. Why compasses were going haywire. And his answer was, well, kind of brilliant in its own way. A planet made of a bunch of nested spheres, like a Russian doll, all spinning at different speeds. And get this, he even had an explanation for the northern lights. He argued that the aurora borealis wasn't some atmospheric thing caused by the sun. No way. He thought it was actual physical proof of his theory. It was the glowing atmosphere from inside the Earth leaking out through thin spots in the crust up at the poles. How cool is that? All right, so let's jump forward to the 19th century. This is where Halley's pretty reasonable scientific idea gets, well, hijacked. A few really charismatic and, let's be honest, very eccentric figures in America grab hold of it and turn it into something else entirely, a full-blown obsession. And the theory just explodes into two totally different directions. You've got one guy, John Cleves Sims Jr., who says, hey, there are giant holes at the poles and we can sail right into them. And then you've got another fella, Cyrus Teed, who comes along and says, you're all wrong. We're already on the inside, living on the inner surface of the globe. Now, this Sims guy, he was a war hero from the War of 1812. So, people listened to him. And he was so convinced this was real, he spent his entire life on the road, giving lectures, trying to convince Congress to fund an expedition to find what he called Sims's Hole at the North Pole. The man was on a mission. Okay, fast forward again. This time to the 1940s, because this is where the theory takes a really sharp turn. We're leaving the world of quirky geography behind and diving headfirst into straight-up paranormal sci-fi. And the guy who kicks this off is a writer named Richard Shaver. He starts publishing these crazy stories in a super popular magazine called Amazing Stories. But here's the twist. He claimed they weren't fiction at all. He swore they were his actual, real-life experiences meeting these super advanced and often pretty nasty alien races that lived deep inside the Earth. And just like that, the whole idea of the underworld completely transforms. It's not about ghosts and demons anymore. It's a high-tech hideout for ancient alien civilizations. It's basically a secret hangar bay for UFOs, a hidden base where they can watch us from below.
And that brings us to what is probably the most famous and for sure the most elaborate part of this whole theory. This is the one you might have heard of. It's the story that says the Nazis didn't actually lose the war. They just relocated.
Man, this story has got everything. It all starts with a real event, a Nazi expedition to Antarctica in 1938. But then the theory goes that they found an entrance to the inner Earth, they made friends with an advanced civilization called the Agarthians, and they built this massive secret base called Base 211. And the grand finale? Hitler himself supposedly escaped Berlin and fled there in a U-boat. The story even claims the US Navy tried to take them out in 1947 but got beaten back by Nazi flying saucers. It's a lot. Okay, wow. So after that wild ride through science, sci-fi, and Nazi conspiracies, let's come back up to the surface for a reality check. What does actual modern science have to say about any of this? Well, the biggest nail in the coffin is just gravity. It's that simple. We know exactly how much the Earth weighs. Scientists have measured its mass with incredible accuracy. And a hollow planet, it just wouldn't be heavy enough. It couldn't create the gravity that keeps our feet on the ground, let alone hold on to something as massive as the moon. So, what about those giant holes at the poles? Believers will tell you there's a massive cover-up, that all the satellite photos are doctored.
But the real reason is actually kind of boring. It's just about how satellites orbit. A lot of them don't pass directly over the very tip of the poles, so when you stitch all the photos together, you're left with a little blank circle of missing data. It's not a hole in the ground, it's a hole in the data.
But honestly, the real smoking gun, the thing that proves it once and for all, is earthquakes. Think of it like this. An earthquake is like ringing a giant bell. The vibrations, the seismic waves, travel all the way through the planet. And we have detectors on the other side of the world that pick up those waves that have traveled straight through the core. If the Earth were hollow, those waves would just stop. There'd be a massive shadow. But they don't stop. They go right through, proving there's something solid and dense in there. So that leaves us with one last big question, right? If the science is so crystal clear, why does this idea stick around? I think maybe it's because the thought of a secret, undiscovered world right beneath our feet is just too cool to let go of. The idea that there's still a final frontier to explore, a whole world hidden from view, well, that's a story that's just too good to die.